Good afternoon. Lots going on here. Little parade, a little hurricane. You've had a couple interviews already today.
It's been a busy day. We did avoid the umbrella crash, which was good. So
fortunate for us.
Excitement.
So I'm super excited about this conversation. We've had the chance to get to know each other a little bit. We have not only great content, but we have video content to keep people really engaged and interested. And the first video that we're going to show is, I just can't get enough of it. I'm sure many of you have seen it. You'll all agree. Before we jump into it, I want to make a few introductions. I'm Mike Schott. I'm with Volta Media, formerly Volta Charging. We have a nationwide network of electric vehicle charging stations that have 55-inch screens on them to address consumers when they walk into the store. So you can imagine that the organic nature of our conversation, as we go through it, you'll see we have a lot of mutual interests here. And so I want to hand it to Rachael and Jonathan. Rachael with Volkswagen, Jonathan with Johannes Leonardo, to do a brief introduction so you can kind of get to know them a little bit. Rachael,
Absolutely. No, thanks, Mike. Rachael Zaluzec, nice to meet you, everyone. I have the very good fortune of being in the position that I get to tell stories about an amazing brand, and I get to work to make sure that the customer experiences meet those stories. So I'm with Volkswagen of America, and let me introduce a very fantastic partner of mine, Mr. Jonathan Santana.
Oh, thank you, Rachael. It's very kind of you both, and really excited to be here today to talk about Volkswagen and the enduring DNA of this brand through America specifically. And Rachael is a great partner as well, enabling us to do great work with them as a client and establishing the brand firmly in America's hearts and minds. So looking forward to this, Mike.
Great. Well, I'm going to start out with sort of a broad question that I'm going to ask Rachael to keep it focused, because I think with knowing her passion, I think she could talk for the whole 20 minutes on this. But speak to the DNA of the brand. Before we get into the Super Bowl commercial, let's talk about that.
You're right. That is a question that I could talk about for days. So Volkswagen is a brand that has such a personality. It has a point of view. It's got that intrinsic wink that everybody knows and everybody loves. And that's not just in the messaging, it's in the product itself. It's in the thoughtfulness of the design of the vehicles that we put on the road. But when we talk about the brand, the most important aspect of it is honestly talking about our owners, talking about our drivers, who actually are the true DNA of the brand. And they're the ones that frankly give me the passion that we have for everything that we do. And that comes through, frankly, in the work that ultimately, hopefully, we'll be seeing here shortly.
I can't wait. So I'm going to go with this. I can't quite see. Jonathan, let me know if this plays.
Did you ever read about a frog who dreamed of being a king and then became one? Well, except for the names and a few other changes, if you talk about me, the story's the same one. I cried. Said I, and I am lost, and I can't even say why.
Punch Buggy Red.
I am myself.
Let's hear it. I mean, the tinglies, right? So Jonathan, I mean, I can't stop watching this commercial. I missed it on game day, and we talked about the impact of the game day and all the surrounding impact, which is just remarkable about a Super Bowl ad. But Jonathan, I'd love to talk to you first about taking us on the creative journey that is this love story.
Yeah, sure. I mean, I think I'm going to start where Rachael left off, as we always do. But essentially, we had to establish and understand truly what the DNA of the brand is. And as Rachael said, it's about its people, the owners, the drivers. And I think the enduring legacy that the brand has had and left its mark in America. This is also the 75th year of Volkswagen in America, is this year. So it seemed like an apt moment as well to, I think, rekindle the love that the brand has had throughout the many decades. And specifically, it landed on the shores of America in New York. That's all kind of true. We didn't make it up, in 1949. And it landed in a bigger is better America. There were grand big cars and bigger gestures. And here was this odd little frog-looking car, affectionately known as the Beetle, that arrived on the shores, I think with mixed reception. But it became an icon somehow, and a different cohort of people adopted it. And it's those people in America who continue to adopt it today that we are, communicating with, but also trying to bring in a new audience. And I think the film was reminding everyone that there's this rich heritage in the DNA of the brand that exists through every decade with all kinds of people from all kinds of backgrounds, all kinds of communities, and established itself firmly as part of the family. And people did all kinds of things with all of the vehicles, from the Beetle to the bus to the Jetta to the GDI, the Scirocco. There were other cars we didn't even get to show. But the entire journey is this wonderful legacy of the brand. And we're almost inviting at the end with the buzz coming out of the container 75 years later, a new icon for the brand as we head into a different era of mobility with the electric vehicles.
Yeah, I mean, it's so relevant in different parts of our lives. I told you the story about how I was so jealous of my younger sister who had a Jetta. I had my dad's oxidized Buick LeSabre. Somehow my younger sister got a Jetta.
She won, yeah.
She won, and that was the car. And so another question for you, Jonathan, is around so many relevant cultural relevancy points there. You have The Hitchhiker and the Summer of Love. And then you have what I'll reveal my age, Herbie the Love Bug. Herbie was my jam. And then you have The Simpsons and you have Star Wars. I mean, was that an effort? Was that intentional, or is it just because of the journey that those naturally?
A bit of both, to be fair, but very intentional as well. The brand established itself in all kinds of cultural corners. And again, not only was it adopted by people and communities and families, but by culture. And I think that's, as we're heading with the brand now, and we're really excited, right, Rachael? It is inserting the brand into more cultural moments. I think the fact that it became the icon or the symbol of, the 60s and 70s and peace, in the backdrop of Vietnam War and all the rest of it, the flower bus, the hippie bus, the fact that it was revered and is still today in many films and movies, and almost a character, always, cast as a character within these films. There's something incredible about the legacy of this brand in not just, like I say, family, but like in culture. And so how do we continue to bottle up that notion and serve it up to a new audience? And there's so much like around the 90s nostalgia as well. So Simpsons made it in. Obviously, there was the mini Darth Vader, which is a lovely story as well, because Lance Accord, who shot that film, shot this one for us, and it was nice homage for him as well, just to pop that in there, right, Rachael?
Yeah, it was paying tribute back to the storytelling of Volkswagen of Beyond. And what I like to say about this spot is, yes, it's telling the story of America, or of Volkswagen in America, but it's not a story we wrote. America wrote the story for us. We were just telling it back. So really bringing us into culture, making us relevant in places that, frankly, a brand can't insert itself. We were brought along, and it makes the story that much more credible and that much more authentic as we tell it back.
So credit goes to us.
Credit goes to, yes, credit goes to the Americans.
Every great team that you guys are has this cool partnership, and I've been able to see you guys sort of the way you interact. And I think a great story that underscores that is the strategy behind the Super Bowl ad and the reveal. Can you speak to that, Rachael, and how that kind of came to be?
I can, because it really was a bit of a push and pull. As many of you know, there's a strategy generally of releasing a Super Bowl spot early. And I was pretty precious about the decision that we were going to make with this. This spot, we call it an American love story, and I call it our love letter back to America. And while the team, interestingly enough, Volkswagen was the first, actually, back with the iconic Super Bowl spot with Baby Darth, that released a spot early. So we broke the mold then. And when the team started talking about the release strategy and when are we going to drop it, I said, what do you mean, when are we going to drop it? It's a love letter. You don't let somebody read a love letter before you deliver it. So I was pretty insistent that it'll lose the sentiment, it'll lose the emotion and the passion if you release it early. But
we debated. We
did.
Yeah.
We went back and forth. But where we landed, and I love the way that Jonathan and the team worked it out, was rather than deliver the letter, I want to drop a Hershey kiss, a kiss, a kiss, a kiss, and then deliver it. And that's what we were able to do with all of the more extended footage that the team pulled, is tell extended versions, more vignettes of those stories to really personalize it for each one of the different eras that we demonstrated.
Yeah, I think they were just these little more precise, like in-depth look at some of these moments, each one of these decades, and how each vehicle, played its part in American culture.
Well, you guys have teed it up perfectly. Good news, we have a couple of these. Let's show one right now.
People customize all kinds of cars, but nothing screamed blank canvas like the GTI. It was just begging for us to have fun with it. So we did.
I don't know. It's like your first kiss or first time hearing indie rock. That was the Jetta for us. You know, our first car. Windows down, music blaring. Our first taste of freedom.
I was going to say, so all in, there were 7 of those vignettes that we released. Because I get to pick, I picked my 2 favorite that we aired. But each one of them tells the story of how somebody really resonated with a particular product and how that product was prevalent in that particular decade or in that moment in time, and where culture showed up. So I think it was enough to tease something coming without giving away the full love letter.
I concur with that. Like it allowed you to get a little bit closer to the brand and create some sort of intrigue in terms of what we were going to do for the Super Bowl, but without giving it away completely. So, it was a strategy that I think really worked in the end, and kudos to Rachael for pushing and us delivering back something that we thought could fix the issue at hand and try and break the mold once again with the brand.
Another fun part of this Super Bowl journey is the performance, right? This is not a performance marketing campaign. But Rachael said something to me I thought I'm very passionate about, thinking of the full funnel, not just as the gravitational pull to the bottom of the funnel. What's the importance of the funnel? And can you talk a little bit about what obviously is an upper funnel spot and what you saw?
So a couple of comments to that. So the first one is when we were talking about measurement strategy, right? Heavy investment for a brand to be in this moment. So they're going to say, what are you looking for Monday morning? And we were talking about views, we're talking about clicks, we're talking about all of that. And I said, again, how do you measure something like this? Sentiment was the one KPI that I wanted the team to chase after, which effectively they did. But when you're that laser focused on something like sentiment, what happens is performance that you weren't expecting. So we had the absolute highest visit day on VW.com the following day. We drove incremental endemic traffic. We drove lower funnel activity that we never expected to see. And there was not a single call to action in that spot. There wasn't a single hero vehicle, right? It really just talked about storytelling. And what we got from that was so much more from a measurement perspective than we probably would have achieved if we targeted that type of measurement. So kudos to the team and the way that the work actually presented itself and frankly still does. We are still airing it. We're still seeing those lower funnel results with attribution that we frankly, again, we weren't expecting.
I think it builds on the power of brand building and creating, I think, a connection with consumers in terms of their loyalty and love for the brand, or for new consumers wanting to enter into potentially purchasing a car at some point or whatever it is, identifying with the brand. And I think it's important that brands don't forget about, obviously there's short-term business goals and we have to deal with those constantly, but there's a long-term vision for the brand. And I think that has to be respected and adhered and thought through very carefully. And sometimes I think when you do that with, as Rachael said, with real intention and laser focus, the rewards can be very beneficial to the bottom line of the business.
And with emerging, so different audiences, a variety of audiences, and talk a little bit more, Jonathan, about how the creative fits with these new emerging channels and what channels pose surprises and which were expected.
Yeah, I think like a lot of the work we do is obviously trying to appeal to a much broader audience at large. And look, it's a smaller market share, of course, Volkswagen in America. Compared to, say, globally. And so we do always think about how we're communicating with a certain cohort of people broadly, but also specifically how we show up for specific groups of people, like communities, the Hispanic audience. How are we endearing ourselves to a new generation of drivers specifically as well? So while this film looks back, it actually also looks forward. And there is an essence of, there's a new audience that doesn't know the brand potentially as well. There, I think there's the last 15, 20 years of the brand in terms of culture haven't been as specifically prolific. And as we're leaning into a new evolution how we might drive in the future, and hopefully it takes on and sticks, is that there's an opportunity to ingratiate ourselves with a completely new set of people who think differently about how they want to get around, how they want to commute, etc. And I think that's a very important aspect of how we're talking to different audiences, which means the platforms we talk on as well start to skew and change, and we think about how we're approaching those.
That's great. And we've talked quite a bit about, we've talked around it in this conversation, but really at the heart of all this is the soul of the brand, right? And so as we kind of transition this conversation, the way the Super Bowl ad kind of led to the hinting of the ID buzz, can we talk about the soul of the brand and how you view that?
I think, as I mentioned, the soul of the brand, the DNA, truly is our drivers. It's the free spirit that they bring to the brand, and that could not be personified more than in this amazing vehicle that is going to be coming finally to the U.S. Most awaited. We're probably 4 years anticipated, as we discussed. But it's a level of optimism. It's a level of, again, it's not everybody, right? It's a very distinct buyer. It's a very distinct personality, but it's got that. Thank you. Sorry, it's got that excitement. It's got that optimism. It's got that forward-looking, a little bit of counterculture. I don't want to say bravado because it's not that, but it's enough to stand out to be different. So that's what I would say is truly the soul of the brand, and what we're very, very excited to be bringing as we finally get the vehicle on our shores here soon.
Yeah, and this is all about modernizing
Exactly.
the soul of the brand. So we have
Exactly.
time for one more video. See if I can get this.
Can I talk about this thing? I think just one of the things about the work that we're doing at the moment is recognizing, to Rachael's point, the soul of the brand is a perfect bookend. I think the ID buzz to the arrival of when the Beetle arrived in 1949 to today, 75 years later, two very unique and distinctive cars, loaded with personality. There's nothing else like the ID buzz on the road today and in America very shortly, and the Beetle was that too many years ago. And then, so I think from the brand, from the company, respecting the ideology behind that is design principles, the fact that it's such a different brand, to the advertising and what we do to help support that launch is recognizing as well the DNA of the brand in terms of its tone of voice, its wit, its charm, and leaning into what came before us. We like to say we're custodians of this brand. We didn't invent it, but we have a responsibility to keep it on track and to deliver what's really true about it. And I think that if there's a superpower we have as a group of people is understanding and recognizing that. And I think with all legacy brands, you have to truly, when we talk about modernizing soul of the brand, it's the DNA is recognizing that, understanding that, finding what's true about the brand, and making it relevant for a new audience today versus starting from scratch, scrapping all of the heritage and history. Other brands would die and kill for the history and heritage that I think Volkswagen has, and we have to protect that and make it show up in exciting ways.
Just make it relevant for a new audience that doesn't necessarily connect with the former, but still keeping that same through line and keeping true to who the brand is.
This is awesome, you guys. That was that was the answer to my final question. So we just nailed it. I know we're at time. So I want to thank you both.
Thing to go up.
Yeah, we got that. We got that a few minutes ago. We're good though. Thank you very much. You've been a great audience. Thank you, Rachel and Jonathan.
Thank you, Mike.
Congratulations.
Thank you, Brand Innovators.